Hey guys, what is up? This is SS Sinister Kato with a video about what if Izuku Midoriya was born with a quirk. It's not just any quirk, it is Muscular's quirk. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. At the last video USJ Arena was under attack and Deku managed to defeat the Nomu like how All Might did, but the unfortunate thing that happened was he was exhausted and injured, so All Might took him to Cavalry Girl. And now it's time to get to this part. Days after the incident, everyone still attended school like nothing has happened. Class 1 has more protection due to them being attacked by the villains. So during lunchtime, Deku was asked by All Might if he wanted to check up on each other. Deku agreed and ate lunch with All Might. Midway through lunch, All Might asked Deku how he was doing and if anything happened to him yet. Deku replied by telling All Might there wasn't anything that happened since the incident. All Might guessed that it was actually time for him to tell Deku more about his injury and stuff about One for All. Young man, I want to tell you some good news. All Might said. I know you told me to start training like I once did and get treated by doctors around the world, and so I did. Deku smiled and knew what All Might was gonna say, but he still let him finish his sentence with a smile on his face. I want to say that my injury has been reduced by 33%. All Might claimed. Really? That is great. Deku smiled back. So what's the other news? All Might replied, well, the other good news is that my time limit has increased. I can go on for a full 8 hours with One for All. Deku later proceeded to tell All Might that the guy who wanted to kill him was like a man-child. A kid who accessed a lot of power. And All Might thought so too. Later that day, when school ended, every class gathered in front of Class 1A. Saying that they will beat them and will be greater than them at the UA festival. Bakugo laughed it and said, move extras before I blast you all off. Deku apologized at the other students and said, sorry everyone. That's just how Kachan is and also, we will take you and win the tournament. Deku and Bakugo walked off and everyone was shouting at them. Remember, in this timeline, both Deku and Bakugo are best friends and rivals. The rest of the class 1 just looked in total shock that those two are free spirit. So for the next few days before the UA festival, everyone trained. Deku and Bakugo trained with each other and improving their quirks. Bakugo was developing a new technique and making his explosion more stronger. Meanwhile Deku was in the jungle taking on animals such as gorillas and tigers, improving his durability and stamina. Deku and Bakugo also fights each other to improve their fighting skills and experience. So when it was time for the tournament, Deku and Bakugo were both in good shapes and were far stronger than in the anime. When they entered the school, all eyes were on them. Present Mic announces the beginning of the UA Sports Festival. All of the first year students are introduced by their respective class. Midnight is introduced as the chief referee, and she calls Bakugo to the stage for the student pledge. Bakugo then uses the attention to announce that he will win the festival. All of his rival students ranted and boo at him for this overconfident statement. Midnight moves the ceremony along and immediately reveals the festival's first game, the obstacle race. She explains that all 11 classes must race 4 kilometers around the outside of the festival stadium throughout an obstacle course. Students are permitted to use their quirks as much as they like, as long as they don't leave the course. Before the race started, Todoroki came up to Deku and said, be careful. All the students take their places in front of a large corridor that leads outside the stadium. Once the countdown to the start of the race completes, all the students rush through the doorway and end up jam-packed together. Todoroki realizes this is the first obstacle the competitors must get through, and uses his quirk to freeze some of his opponent's feet for a short time and escape the crowd. Some of the class 1 students managed to jump out, and the difference from the anime was that Deku managed to jump out as well. Deku and the other contestants notice the army of robots standing before them, including the giant 0-point villains from the entrance exam practical test. While the most of the students stand back and cower in fear, Todoroki takes action and freezes some of the gigantic villains with ease. They're frozen off balance and they fall over in front of the other students. The crowd cheers for him, but Deku stood next to him and said, "If you want to hype up the crowd, you do it like this." Deku activated his muscle fibers and used one for all. Then smash. He destroyed 2 0-point robots with ease. The crowd cheered for him even louder and he smiled. Then Bakugo comes up next to them and overlapped them. He chuckled and said, "Don't lose your concentration, Deku." Todoroki and Deku then started to run to Bakugo. Deku looked like a gorilla when running, by the way, due to his arms being bigger than him when using his quirk. The students eventually reached the next obstacle, the fall. Students must traverse large stone pillars connected by tight ropes without falling into the pit below in order to move on to the next obstacle. Todoroki and other students like Ida used their quirks to cross over by balancing. Bakugo just flew right over using his explosions. Deku had an idea. He went full crawling and activated his quirks all over his body, and he then jumped as high as he could. He later punched the air behind him, making a massive air pressure and pushing other students back. He then later reached the end and tied with Todoroki. Angered by this, Todoroki froze Deku's legs and ran past him by doing a cheap shot. Then the final obstacle appeared. It was a minefield that the students must cross in order to reach the finish line. Shoto is the first to reach it, but he's at a disadvantage because he must cross it slowly to avoid getting hit by the mine detonations. Bakugo caught up with Todoroki by flying over, and other people too. Deku smiled and broke the ice between his legs and roared. Pro heroes cheered for as he caught up with the rest. Thinking that he needs to do something quick that can catch up to Bakugo and Todoroki easily, Deku digged up some mines like in the anime. He activated muscle augmentation and full crawling. Then with a massive bang, Deku flew over everyone with a smile on his face, and seeing Bakugo and Todoroki fighting, he grabbed and threw them both to the ground, causing him to go right through them. Deku then started running like a madman with Bakugo and Todoroki behind him. Then as the crowd roared with excitement, Deku came out first as victorious. Todoroki and Bakugo follow suit shortly after, and then all the other students. Achako came up to Deku and asked if she could join his team, and he quickly accepted the offer. Deku then quickly went to ask Shoji, saying that his strength would be needed for one of his attack. To this, Shoji accepted too. Only reason I'm doing this is just for his quirk to be used for defense and to catch him when he uses his quirk. And as you can see, Deku now has his own team. Shoji for his great strength, Achako for support, and Tokoyami for defense. The final countdown concludes and midnight announces the beginning of the game. All the teams rush Team Midoriya at once. Deku boldly proclaims that his team will take them on, but then suddenly a Class 1B uses his quirk to soften the ground and force Team Midoriya to sink into it. Deku then smiled and asked his team to grab onto his legs tightly, and then so they did. Deku punched the air and knocking some team over. Deku smiled and Tokoyami started picking up some flying headbands using Dark Shadow. Minutes later, Bakugo's headband was stolen, but he managed to get it back. Minutes till the match ends, Todoroki wanted to go against Deku. Shoji used his arms and started to protect Deku for the scenario that is about to happen. Ida used his final resort and speed through Team Midoriya. Unfortunately, Dark Shadow and Shoji's Duffly arms managed to block Todoroki's attack and succeeded. Todoroki lost his temper and created an ice barrier blocking Deku's way out. He then proceeded to freeze Team Midoriya and take the 10 million headband. Whilst Team Midoriya is frozen, Deku came out of Shoji's Duffly arms and jumped into the air and punched it, making a massive air pressure. The 10 million headband flew up into the air with other headband, and Dark Shadow grabbed it and caught Deku along. Todoroki started using his fire sides against Deku, but then quickly hesitated. Then out of nowhere, Bakugo showed up saying that he will be involved. Then the bell rang and he fell to the ground. Team Midoriya came out first yet again. Team Todoroki came second with Team Bakugo coming third and Shinso's team coming on third. Since I cannot be bothered to write the rest of the tournament, I will just go through Deku's fight and Shoji's. Shoji went against Ida and unfortunately lost because of his speed. Then Shinso vs Deku. Yes, Deku was still brainwashed because I want him to see the former users of One for All. Shinso asked Deku a question and Deku replied. Causing him to be brainwashed, Shinso ordered Deku to go out of bounds. Suddenly before going out, Bakugo screamed Deku's name and Deku saw the former users of One for All, and his quirk went off on his own. His fingertip explodes, and air pressure came out. Deku was quickly discharged from the spell, and activated his muscle fibers, and went up to Shinso. Angered from earlier after being humiliated, Deku grabbed Shinso's leg, and threw him to the crowds. Deku then won that match. The crowd cheered for him. All Might went up to Deku and asked if he was okay. Deku told him everything about his visions about the former users of One for All. All Might explained that Deku was getting a better control of the power and that he too used to get visions like that. Endeavor came out of nowhere and told Deku to convince Todoroki to use his fire side and praised him about his quirk being strong and similar to All Might. Deku then said that his son is not him and he is not All Might. Later before the fight, Todoroki came up to Deku and asked him about All Might. He said that he'll beat him and that he will win the tournament due to his father watching. Todoroki then said that Deku might be as well All Might's secret love child due to his quirk. Then Todoroki vs Deku. Todoroki tended to finish the match very fast and not used his fire side. He did the same to what he did with Zero. Knowing it's Deku, he knew it has to be bigger. And when he did, Deku activated his muscle fibers and punched the ice with One for All. Todoroki and the crowd behind him was blown away by the air pressure. Deku yelled at Todoroki, "If you want to win against me, you have to use your fire side." "Did my father pay you to say this?" asked Todoroki. "No, because I too have another quirk. So it will be disadvantage for you if you don't use your other one," replied Deku. Then, Todoroki used his fire side, shooting massive fireballs at Deku and an enormous amount of ice barrier. Deku then smiled and said that he'll get serious. Todoroki also smiled and thanked Deku to what he said. Then boom, both of them clashed. The crowd cheered, and Cementus quickly interfered and created multiple massive cement walls and an explosion in the middle of the match happened. Todoroki was out of bound and unconscious. Deku stood victorious with his arm up on the air. The crowd cheered for him. Then Deku vs Ida. Deku wanted to show off One for All and used full crawling. His speed vs Ida's speed. Then two people clashed into each other and Deku managed to outpace Ida. Deku won by Ida passing out. Now for the final Deku vs Bakugo. Both friends smiled, knowing the result. As the bell rang, Bakugo fires a massive explosion at Deku. Unfortunately, Deku blocked it with his muscles. Minutes has passed. Deku was getting exhausted from blocking attacks from Bakugo. Bakugo was also exhausted too. His arms were hurting. As Deku was about to punch him, Bakugo fired his last resort after his heating up his palms with his explosion, causing him to sweat more. Deku smiled, then punched the air with One for All and his own quirk together. Yet again, a massive shockwave was sent throughout the arena. Bakugo is out of bound. Deku is standing unconscious, but still in bound. The whole arena cheered for both kids for doing a good job. Deku is again first place. He hugged Bakugo and told him that it was a great match. Both friends smiled at each other, and that was the end for this arc. But what happened to Ida? And why did he have to leave early? Tune in for the next episode of What If Deku Had Muscular's Quirk. Hey guys, I would like to say thank you for watching my videos, and I hope you like them. If you do, please leave a like and share the videos to your friends. Also, if you want to support me, please subscribe and tell me what my next video should be about. I hope you have a nice day and keep calm.